God forbid, fake history. History's not always pretty. Sometimes there's some bad stories, sometimes there's some bad people in it, but we can learn from all of it. So welcome to our Walk in History Tour. Welcome to our Spyglass Walk-in History Tour. My name's Kevin. I'm going to be showing you guys around St. Augustine today. I'm actually a partner in Spyglass Travel along with my lovely wife Angie, which makes me the junior partner every single time. We founded the company 6 years ago. Our direct website is www.spyglasstravel.org. That is the way directly to get a hold of us for our walking history tour and our haunted history tour as well. But very proud of the history of St. Augustine and very protective of it as well. I'm all about the real history. I don't like cleansed history, whitewashed history, God forbid, fake history. History's not always pretty. Sometimes there's some bad stories, sometimes there's some bad people in it, but we can learn from all of it. So welcome to our Walk in History Tour. Harkens back to his first visit to St. Augustine. When he first comes to St. Augustine, the Eastern Seaboard Railroad coming down the east coast of the United States stops coming south in Jacksonville, Florida. After that, you have to catch a ferry across the St. Johns River, and then catch a horse-drawn rail car the additional 18 miles into the city of St. Augustine. Hot, miserable, and a little bit dangerous. Mr. Flagler notes that these rich and powerful folks he's targeting with his hotels will never travel in that fashion. To solve the problem, he buys up all the local rails south of the St. Johns River. There's 3 small railroads. None of them connect to each other. They don't even share the same gauge of rail. But he creates the Florida East Coast Railway. He builds the first railroad bridge across the St. Johns River and brings the rail right into St. Augustine so his guests can arrive in comfort and style. The state of Florida loves what he does with it because it's going to develop the area. And at this time in our state's history, we're the poorest and least populated of all 44 states. We're so poor we can't even afford to build our own infrastructure. Mr. Flagler can't afford it. So the state of Florida makes him a deal. For every mile of railroad track he will build in the state of Florida, cash out of pocket, they will give him 3,480 acres of Florida land along the tracks. Mr. Flagler knows a good deal when he hears it. By the time he passes away in 1913, he has extended the railroad all the way to Key West. Needless to say, Florida owes him a lot of land. To make the land pay off, he creates the real estate company. But everybody wins in the end. Florida gets that infrastructure built they never could afford to build on their own. So Flagler gets his money back out of the investment by selling off the land he's given in exchange. And the people of Florida win because now industry and opportunity are coming to places they never existed before. And really, he creates Florida in the modern sense that we know today. Now, when Henry starts first building his very first luxury hotel here in St. Augustine of Ponte de Leon, he realizes immediately he's going to have a problem. And the problem is, nothing fun to do in 1880 St. Augustine. To solve that problem, I'll tell you at the next stop, so come on. There was no statue of Henry Flagler out front. He didn't have that big of an ego. And it didn't say Flagler College on that arch. Other than that, it's pretty much unchanged. Now the second hotel Mr. Flagler built, the one with all the amenities inside, right across the street. Today's Lightning Museum opens at the Alcazar Hotel, January of 1889, the following year. Inside the Alcazar, you're going to find a number of things to do, like bowling alleys, gentlemen's clubs, gambling halls, taverns, wet dry saunas, exercise rooms. Out back is an Italian-style plaza that has croquet, clay tennis courts, and you can even learn to ride a bicycle at the Alcazar Bicycle School. But the centerpiece of the amenities, if you look down this street, you see a rounded area of the building at the back. If we went down to the next street, you would see another rounded area of the building at the back. That's each end of the world's largest indoor swimming pool at the time. It's a city block long. Now the swimming pool sits in a 3-story portion of the building. The 2 levels above the pool are open, so it's open all the way to the roof. And the roof at that time was made up of glass windows. These walls are 18 feet thick at the base, 4 to 5 feet thick at the top, and they're built in a pyramid shape all the way down. Reason for the pyramid shape, you can't knock over a wall that's built like a pyramid. It won't fall over no matter how hard you hit it. The rest of the wall, same shape, 13 feet thick at the base, 3 to 4 feet thick at the top. The real advantage of the fort is an accident. It's that coquina stone it's built out of. Turns out it's cannonball proof. That was a lucky strike. Now, they didn't know that when they built it. They just used the only stone that was locally available. They didn't find out it's cannonball proof until that 1702 siege. The first cannonballs to strike the fort do practically nothing. Then they realized they really have something. Now we know today that when coquina dries out, it leaves air pockets all throughout the stone. When a cannonball strikes it, the air pockets collapse and absorb the shock. Cannonballs will either stick in the coquina or bounce off of it depending on the angle and the velocity. But if it's another type of stone or concrete that's solid, cannonball strikes that, shock radiates out, and that stone will literally shatter. So this fort is cannonball proof.
Interesting.
It's the reason the fort is undefeated in its entire history. From its 1695 completion until 1900 when it's finally decommissioned. It's 205 years of winning. 12-0 technically. 10 minor attacks, 2 major assaults. No one ever came close to taking this fort by force. It did trade hands a few times due to treaties, but that's activities in other parts of the world, never taken by force. Now the fort was nearly destroyed one time and one time only. I'm going to take you up that hill over there and I'm going to show you the evidence of that near destruction. We'll also talk about the people who did it. The scary thing is, they're still here. In 1938, the fort is taken over by the National Park Service. The Park Service comes in here, they want to turn this into a tourist attraction. They do no research into the building of the fort or what it's made of. They only want to make it attractive to tourists. So somebody comes up with a less than brilliant idea. Hey, let's put water in the lower moat. Make it look like an English castle. That'll make people want to come see it. Not realizing that coquina absorbs water. So they dammed up the lower moat, filled it up with water 3 to 4 feet deep for the next nearly 60 years. The entire time the fort is soaking it up, becoming heavier and softer and heavier and softer, and finally starts to crumble under its own weight. They finally realized their mistake in 1996. 96. Maybe the water we're artificially putting in here is causing the fort to crumble under our feet. Tear down the dams, the water drains out, the fort continues to move and settle for the next 10 years, dry out. After then, they have mortared all the cracks, and it's been here it hasn't moved since. Cemetery. This is the oldest Catholic cemetery in all of Florida. Around the Talamato, you only see about 100 standing headstones and above-ground crypts. There's over 1,100 burials here that we know of. Most of them are unmarked due to the British period. The British come in 1763. They are Protestant. They hate the Spanish. They hate the Catholics. They tear down our Indian church and use it for firewood. They tear up all the wooden cross markers from the old Spanish cemetery and use those for firewood as well. Those British, they seem so sweet. I can't believe people didn't like them during that period. So most of the graves here are unmarked. In fact, when they put up the walls and fences around the cemetery, they only encase the standing headstones. There's burials out in every direction, under the homes and buildings in each and every direction. It's a very common occurrence here in St. Augustine. We have bodies buried everywhere. San Marco Hotel that stood on that very footprint. The San Marco was our first true luxury hotel in the city of St. Augustine. It's the very first month it was opened, January of 1884. It was a huge 5-story wooden structure, double wraparound porches, and it was so modern for the era, it even featured Otis elevator. Pretty impressive for 1884. It showed Mr. Flagler the potential of St. Augustine as a vacation destination, not for himself, but for all the giants of the Gilded Age. That big money tends to stick pretty close together, as big money tends to do today. Most of them lived in and around the New York City area. They would spend their summers in a beautiful little town called Newport, Rhode Island. But Newport winters are no better than New York City winters. So he thought this would be a fantastic winter destination for all those rich and powerful folks. He sets out to build luxury hotels of his very own to draw that clientele down. Long story short, he does work and it changes all of our lives in Florida forever.